So today we are going to be talking about Maltese Falcon, which I don't think invented the noir genre, but it certainly solidified so many tropes that it kind of reshaped it into being what we perceive the genre today. Similar to how Lord of the Rings changed fantasy.
Wow.
This is...
Harmonize with me and hold me tight all through the night. You're shining bright, I'm your oyster, baby, you're my pearl.
This is the Lord of the Rings of noir films. It even has a MacGuffin.
I think, can you describe a MacGuffin again? Oh, plot? It's some kind of magical plot ending, right?
It's something that just like the plot, I can put the actual definition up on screen, but in my head it's always like just an object the plot revolves around that has like mystery and angles to it. And
for what it's worth, I think the Maltese Falcon is the most interesting part about the movie. And I don't mean that in a hot take kind of way, like I don't mean that in that the Maltese Falcon was a bad movie, but I do think that the idea of this bejeweled bird actually has a lot of natural intrigue to it, and it took an hour to get an explanation of what it was, but yes, Daniel, did you find something?
An object or device in a movie or book that serves merely as a trigger for the plot.
so I think that actually, the Maltese Falcon
Maltese Falcon is the MacGuffin.
It's the quintessential one to look at. Would you mind setting up exactly what the plot of Maltese Falcon is?
Sure, except I do need a refresh on the name O'Shaughnessy. Because our Femme Fatale has several different names in this film, but we're going to call her O'Shaughnessy. Comes to the aid of Mr. Sam Spade, detective, and says that she's being chased, she needs his help, and she can offer him some money to get to help her out. Sam Spade agrees to tag along the case. His partner is murdered in the process, and then he
really quickly, like in the first 10 minutes. Yeah, like it's just dead.
He gets reeled into something that's well over his head and pay grade, and then gets roped in by several other characters, including Peter Laurie, who plays Cairo, and a man known simply as the Fat Man. And then it turns out everyone is after this same bird known as the Maltese Falcon, a bird of incredible wealth, jewel encrusted, made of solid gold, and crafted by the Knights Templar for the King of Spain, or King Charles V. They all go after it, people are killed, there's plot twists left and right, and at the end we have a very noir-esque ending.
I rewatched the movie for a second time because we were supposed to record this a while ago and we waited because delays. I rewatched it again this morning with Kayla, and she had such a simplistic yet poignant observation that is so accurate. It was brilliant. She just looked at me and goes, in every scene, so much keeps happening. And that is so much what makes Maltese Falcon enjoyable. It just goes. Every line of dialogue, you're learning new things, recontextualizing a character. Like, it just is never wasting your time and is just pushing constantly forward.
I think that they really treat the audience as intelligent, which is refreshing.
Yeah.
I will also say, I'll level with you, it was difficult to watch. You really have to pay attention because and it's like frustrating in some aspects, I think, because it's so dialogue heavy. I think that, sometimes what I've come to expect from movies is the implication of something, like being able to imply how a character behaves or, what's about to happen, and this is so much character building and plot building with dialogue. I find that there's every single scene is laden with dialogue, which is great, but it's so fast, and it's 1940s dialogue, which means there's slang and language that you're just not familiar with, and so I had the subtitles on, which I hate doing. I typically watch things without subtitles.
To once again talk about how I was watching it with Kayla, when the O'Shaughnessy, when she comes in and sits down across from, it's Humphrey Bogart. I just have to call him Humphrey Bogart. When she starts explaining things, I paused it and looked at Kayla and went, she's spitting bars. Because she's just going so fast. She's just like, here's the situation, here's the context, I'm lying to you, but you don't know that. And
except he always finds out when she's lying, and that's and I'm like, okay, either you're a really good detective or she's a really bad liar, or there's something that I just can't buy into right here.
But getting into the actual setup of the movie, it is in every sense a noir mystery, because this is the one that it is one of the earliest films I've personally seen, I'm sure others exist, where I really felt a director having fun. Just being like, we can totally use the lighting here to do something really dramatic, and I don't know, I found it to be refreshing we've kind of in several movies in a row now, I've picked up more and more on like the styles of the time, and so I can appreciate someone who's standing out, and I can understand why this movie would make such a wave, because it's got a tongue-in-cheek nature to it while taking itself very seriously. Like, the movie is aware that Humphrey Bogart's character is kind of like over the top, to the point where someone literally looks at him and goes, "You're an incredible character."
Very good. You are a character.
And like I was like, okay, this is fun. Like, it's just a lot of fun.
So I think there's several things that I would bring up here. One, I think one thing that's so interesting about this is it's happening during the 40s. This is 1941. So it's in the midst of World War II, and so we actually get a lot of European actors. So Peter Lorre is a Jewish person, so he left Europe to come over as an actor to Hollywood, where he wasn't being persecuted. And I think that what we're seeing in this era is like kind of the transmissing of European styles of directing, because Peter Lorre is German, and so I think he brings with him to American cinema the things like German Expressionism, which then I think there's a very clear segue from German Expressionism into film noir, and I see this very much as sort of like, I think a lot of people agree this is the first film noir, and other movies do it better and more cleanly afterwards, but only because we have this to sort of set the stage for it.
And this movie benefited a lot from the actors being super self-aware of what their characters are, how over the top they are. Peter's face, I think, lends itself to that kind of
eyes. He has giant eyes. I really enjoy his sort of anti-hero type character, because it's nice to see. First, this is like, he's kind of like, I would say, lawful neutral, right? He has his own moral code. I don't see him as necessarily a villainous kind of character. I think that he's probably better than he lets on. It's just that like he has his own moral code, and he's going to keep to it, and there is something kind of respectable about that. And so in his eyes, Mary Astor, who by the way plays O'Shaughnessy, is not worth him risking his own skin. It's not worth the trouble of it. Even at the very end, when she's finally, like, spoiler alert real quick, she gets arrested at the end. Humphrey Bogart, basically puts her away after they've established that they're madly head over heels in love with her.
In the span of 3 days.
I still don't know what her actual story is. I don't know if we've gotten the truth out of her at any point.
My theory is no. Okay. I think she's a compulsive liar who doesn't actually love him and was just trying her best to continue up the facade. And my read of the scene where he's also like, I think I feel these, is just him buying time for the police to get there. I think at that point he's just...
Interesting.
It's my read. I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree, but I feel like it's been 3 days. Maybe this is just me trying to project my own logical brain on this setup, but I really feel like he's like, because he's getting her to like confess to stuff, and when the police get there, he's like, by the way, she did all this shit. He also does things like the widow of his partner, apparently just...
Who he was boning, and like, he didn't care when his partner died. He was like, oh, okay.
That's why I actually thought he might be evil at the beginning, because his partner dies, and he's like, that's a bummer.
But then at the end, he's giving this whole spiel to her about like the things you do when your partner dies. Like, it doesn't matter how much I love you, like, that man was my partner.
Yeah.
I was fucking his wife, sure, but that man was my partner. There's certain things you do for your partner.
Hays Code, Noah. He was fucking his wife. He was giving her
courting
kisses.
her.
He was giving her kisses. This movie can't show people boating, so they do kisses. And I think it's very
the most
funny.
uncomfortable kisses you've ever seen.
So I want to ask you highs and lows of the movie. What was your favorite scene, and what was your least favorite scene?
My favorite scene was, I wish I knew the name of the actor who played the fat man. Sidney Greenstreet. Wow, what a name. That's a great name. I'm going to name my kid Sidney Greenstreet.
You might want to ask Emily about that.
Maybe. No, I'll kiss her.
Okay. She's going to go, I don't want that name. You're just going to... Okay, well...
Favorite scene is when Sidney Greenstreet, who plays the fat man, is explaining the lore of the Maltese Falcon, which apparently was supposed to be like the master shot for the entire film. It took them 2 days to shoot it, and then if you go back and watch it, it's like 7 minutes of uninterrupted screen time. Like, that is a continuous shot for about 7 minutes right there.
Didn't notice. Fuck.
Okay. And the intrigue of the Maltese Falcon is act like that. I've been waiting for the entire movie. There's so much dialogue, and I think that makes the movie feel longer than it is. So every single scene, there's so much happening.
I felt it really flew by for me. Like, this movie, it felt like it was just an hour. I was shocked to see it was almost 2, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was because it was dialogue heavy. I was always paying attention. I was never like feeling the lull, and it was because of the energy the performances brought. So I just had a different experience. I don't think it felt long. I think it felt quite clippy.
It definitely felt clippy in comparison to the last movie, which was Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
A giant pile of shit.
Oh my god.
You want to see our hottest takes?
I personally found it absolutely miserable to sit here for over 3 hours and watch this movie do not a whole lot with some very boring characters and say some incredibly offensive things while looking pretty. Anyone who says this is particularly clever or witty, I would like to show you many other movies which are far more of both of those things.
What was your favorite and least favorite scene? Because I just did my favorite. I haven't even done the least favorite.
My least favorite, I'm not going to lie, is how his partner gets murdered. Because I was just like, okay, that scene existed to show the partner got fucking murdered, and it's, 15 seconds?
Okay, but that's the thing.
He might as well have gone, hi, bam.
But we find out, so the twist at the end, you know what the twist at the end is, right?
Yep.
Like, he's shot by O'Shaughnessy.
Which does not make sense with what we saw.
Except that, like, so that has been done countless times since then, and I think this is where, like, yeah, this is the kind of, this is the starting point for noir, but so many films do it so much better later. If you look at something like The Usual Suspects, where at the very beginning you see the man being shot by Kaiser Soze, and then you go back and rewatch it, you're like, oh, he's being shot by, like, this person. I feel like when I went back and rewatched and watched that scene again, I'm still not getting the read that, like, his partner, Archer or whatever, is, like, you know, realizing the twist that it's O'Shaughnessy who's the person who's like the killer. And
also, like, she admits to killing the guy's partner, and I'm like, what do you think's gonna happen here? Okay, so it also, the Femme Fatale trope, where she is like, I think he even calls her a viper at some point, right? Like, she is supposed to be like the beautiful woman you can't trust.
She's the deadly woman, right? She's the one who's gonna make everything crumble.
My favorite scene is when she is in the room with everyone else, and Humphrey, like, they're doing the confrontation at the end where Humphrey Bogart's getting the monologue and all this stuff. And there's this moment where Humphrey Bogart just punches the guy in the face because he works him up. And, I was actually cackling out loud how often this motherfucker took people's wallets. It is so funny how often he knocks someone out, open their wallet, and be like, it's a good amount of cash. Just robbing people. I don't
think he's a very good private detective. I think he's just a thug. Like, that's how he seems to make most of his cash.
Well, was he pocketing it or putting it back? It just seemed like he was curious about how much money people had.
How much do you carry?
Yeah, he's like, okay, that's but let's go ahead and get into maybe our most important questions.
Wait.
Oh, go
I want to ask you something. Mary Astor, who plays O'Shaughnessy, is the Femme Fatale. What do you think of her as a Femme Fatale? Like, what do you think of her? Because I don't see her really as fitting. I feel like the stereotype of the Femme Fatale is the busty, like, bodacious, like, tits out to here and, like, long hair and just sort of, like, puckered lips kind of thing all the time. And I don't... and
heavy
just like
lipstick,
yeah.
I think you can tell that she is solidifying, as we've said, a lot of the things that would become very important for Femme Fatales, the lies, the twists around them, you know, the setup, and then the reveal what's actually going on that is usually originated from the Femme Fatale. But I like her version a lot more because it's not just a sex object that has a twist. Instead, she has so much character that goes beyond just beautiful liar. She's also kind of conniving in a way where I couldn't really tell whose side she was on in a genuine way. And up until the very end, I was questioning, you know, her motivations. I also found her to be manic in a way that really charmed me, where I was like, man, she feels almost as wild, as she put it, as the detective she's hiring. Like,
so I'm still kind of lost on the motivations. Like, do you think that her motivation is just like, is it for her own protection? Does she want to be stopped being chased by Greenstreet and his sort of gang, or do you think that she truly wants is she after the Maltese Falcon as well? Is everyone in just for the Maltese Falcon? We're all chasing it for our own, like, selfish desires.
My read on her character is that she is someone who wants the people around her to believe her lies and be pawns for her to move around. And so that's why she went to a detective, that she can be like, I'm paying you to do what I want, and I'm then going to murder your partner, I guess. And I think setting all of that up, She just wants to be in constant control, and once she starts losing that control, that is when that desperate manic energy starts coming out, because like many other great, villain-esque characters, their plan starts unraveling because of hubris. I think she thinks that no one is intelligent enough
to catch her.
Exactly. And then, unfortunately, the detective she hired is a wild
guy.
Ace. He's an ace who apparently, while simultaneously boning his partner's wife, also it doesn't care that much that you killed him, but is very loyal to the principle of staying true to his partner.
The idea of the thing.
But okay, do you have any other questions? Concerns?
Questions, concerns, thoughts. I don't know. I think the beauty of this film for me was that the more that I thought about it, the more I enjoyed it, because I think in that sort of first watching, I was like, yeah, okay, this is good. Like, I see the appeal. And it was only like the more that I'm, just like with anything, the more that you research, the more that I am thinking about it and considering the various like scenes and the way it's written and the way it's shot and the backstory of it, the more I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. Because initially, my vote would not be to keep this on the AFI at all. I think there's superior films with Humphrey Bogart that fall under the noir genre that I would keep on there instead.
And from the director. Because I would argue I enjoy Maltese Falcon more, but it would be insane to put this and not Casablanca.
Right.
The director's name is...
John Huston.
Thank you. I always want to say John Hughes, which is not...
Who's also he's another famous director, but very different.
But I actually want to ask one more thing. So
Okay.
the influence of the movie is something we've touched on a little bit, and it wasn't until watching it again this time that it occurred to me just how little has changed since a lot of, like, if you watch a modern movie that's clearly inspired by this, like Snatch, with Brad Pitt and Jason Statham, it's the quick talking, the twists, the guns, the humor, which I think Maltese Falcon, I've seen some people say like it's accidentally funny. No, I think it's pretty intentionally funny.
By God, so you are a character.
And not that this movie is way ahead of its time in like every element, but it feels like it definitely made waves for the time in letting a director really stand out and come in front of the camera in a way that I haven't seen, maybe only in Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
It was like Citizen Kane and this are the two movies from this era where I really feel the director, and in a good way.
And they come out in the same year. Like, they're
God damn, what a year for
1941,
cinema.
I know, right?
Holy God. So yeah, I just wanted to say in the note I really appreciate the direction. I think it's the strongest element in the movie. I get why it launched a career, and I think actors are only as good as directors get them to be, and every actor seems to be bringing it in a kind of hammed up way, but that's not a bad thing. But let us go ahead and move on to these questions. Would you like to see it remade today? And if so, by whom?
Actually, I would love to see it. You know who I think would do a really good job with the Maltese Falcon is Rian Johnson.
Oh,
the guy who's been doing the Knives Out series, and he did the middle Star Wars movie, which I was not.
Looper.
He did, which is one of my favorite movies. Well, it's a great film if you haven't seen it.
I thought it was really good. I didn't love it as much as you did.
Oh, I love it. But I think he's so sort of practiced at clearly like, that's his kind of background, is watching these movies and films and sort of reading books that have a lot of twists and turns. And I think he would do a fantastic job of this. I think he would sort of bring it up to date in a way that modern audiences could follow along with it and be like invested in the characters and the dialogue, while also giving it like a current twist, making it his own thing.
And I think that's a really good director to bring up, because I think Rian Johnson's success with Knives Out and Glass Onion has shown there is a really big demand for this kind of storytelling.
Yeah.
The mystery with over-the-top characters, it's addictive, and it's just entertaining on a raw level, and I don't think it's as big as it used to be. It's not dead by any means, but there is still a real need for it. I would only disagree because I feel like Maltese Falcon has been remade 1,000 times in just the movies that are so clearly inspired by it. Whether it is Knives Out or, as I mentioned before, Snatch, movies like that. They are far closer to being Maltese Falcon than not, and especially the structure of the story and how the reveals are done.
And the homage and just sort of like, if you know your movie history, like being able to make the connections there.
Yeah. I could see how without a very confident director, this would be a really difficult story to make interesting.
Yeah, well, one of the things that the people did, like Dashiell Hammett, the guy who wrote the book, was a famous author and like really popular at the time. And I think one of the things that the directors tried to do was change up the story and the like script too much. And John Huston was like, "Why are you doing that? Dashiell Hammett's a great writer. Let's just like actually take the book and
Did you
Yes.
hear that, Hollywood? You don't need to change shit. You can take a successful story and just fucking adapt it. Amazing. I know. Fucking revolutionary idea, right? Just, oh my God, you don't have to think you're better than an author who's been critically and commercially praised. You can just do their work.
I think I also want to say, you know what? The AFI loves Steven Spielberg, so why not just have him do another version of this? It'll probably make its way onto the list.
That would be such Oscar bait, seeing Steven Spielberg do Maltese Falcon. Like, that would be textbook.
They're like,
The Oscars would be like, fuck. All right. Fuck all that, everything everyone at once last year. It's just going to be Steven Spielberg this year. The worst remake of Maltese Falcon you could do. I think this would be so funny. And it would be the A24 version of Maltese Falcon, where you have like the trailer where it's like, it was just a bird. Neither of us would keep
Hollywood
it in the
hired
AFI,
me.
I don't think, right?
No,
Yeah. So that's the end of the...
that's what you wanted, right?
And the next movie we're gonna watch is Noah.
Chinatown.
Chinatown. No?
No?
What you said?
Yeah.
No. Yes.
No.
Chinatown.
Definitely Chinatown.
It's gonna be
Let's do it.
Chinatown. Cool.